Life is dark. It is extremely dark. Are you gonna face that darkness with a smile on your face, or are you gonna crumble apart and fall into pieces? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You're gonna face challenges, you're gonna face obstacles, you're gonna face trouble. This is something that is important, whether you are the owner of the business, whether you're an entrepreneur that's just starting anew, or whether you're an employee or you're a partner. It doesn't matter who you are. Even if you don't work in your life in general, and you might be retired, you still need to have that mindset.
Okay, so today I'm really excited to pick LUCHO's brain to figure out how to help your team develop a growth mindset, because he is the person for this, as an individual, but also as a boss and developing it within his own team. So first, I just wanted to ask you, LUCHO, we've talked about this a little bit before, but can you tell me a bit about your experience before and when you saw that it was important to develop a growth mindset? Like, what were the issues before that was the case?
Before we implemented everything boom in Digifinanz?
Yes. So in Digifinanz, before, in the early days, you'd mentioned that before you started taking initiative to create the boom structure and teach your team, have a business mindset, a business owner's mindset. What was the situation before?
So, well, thanks, Kenley. Man, before we did everything, it was a roller coaster. So we kind of went all over the place. I mean, we had a great culture from the very beginning. Me and my co-founder, we always loved the idea of freedom. We wanted to build our own company because we wanted to have the freedom that we thought that came along with it, right? Like, our vision was, we don't want to work corporate 9-to-5 jobs and be tied to a desk and have to wear a suit and follow our boss's orders and stuff like that. Like, we love the idea of freedom. We love capitalism. We love business, but we just didn't feel right in being in that, like, a cubicle. From the very beginning, we tried to have the kind of culture in our company that is what we liked, you know? And we try to surround ourselves with people who shared that spirit. And in a way we did. I mean, we were very much surrounded by people that, some of them are still friends to this day, that have passed through Digifinanz and left. Some have stayed, of course. Pretty much like everybody who's passed through Digifinanz has, to a certain extent, remained a part of my life. Like, I follow them on Instagram, we talk, I might meet up with them every now and then, because they're really great people. But within Digifinanz, we didn't really have, like, the right incentive structure to get the best out of people and to help them thrive with that sense of freedom that we were trying to get, both for ourselves and for our team. And it totally made sense, because, I mean, we hired employees. We didn't work with partners. We hired employees, and we told them what they had to do, and we gave them, like, this is the protocol, this is what you have to do. They were very boxed in. And you would see that we had some people who were just amazing. They were really great people, super smart. They had an awesome attitude. But then for some reason, at some point, like, things would get tough, or like they would go out of what they were supposed to do, and then things would collapse. Like, clients would ask for too much of them, and they felt like they needed to, and then they would get over anxious, or they felt like they shouldn't have to do this for the client, so they felt like, why am I doing this? Or I'm not gonna do this. We wanted people who would take a sense of ownership of everything they worked on, and, well, they didn't. They worked on things like an employee. I mean, sure, we had some exceptions to that, but in general, it's the way it was. And eventually we actually came to terms with that idea, because, I mean, in the beginning, especially like in the first 2 years, we got really frustrated when people didn't step up a notch. It just became like, well, it's what it is. Like, we can only ask people for so much, because they're not owners, they're employees.
And how did that impact the business, or what kinds of issues did you face because of that mindset?
All around kind of stuff. It varies. So, for instance, we would run into trouble with clients because clients would want something. They would ask for things that maybe Dan, my co-founder, and we could help them out with, that we had like that consulting mindset to help them out, to step outside of lines of what's been scoped and have that flexibility to maneuver around a problem and to see things from different perspectives, like take a more holistic view of the situation, or like step into their finances and go beyond. When we started out, we were a digital marketing agency, and basically we did like SEO, paid advertising, social media calendars, that kind of stuff. It was very limited. I would get involved with some accounts, and when I did, I would go in and look at their finances. I would look at, man, what are you spending money on? What is your whole team makeup? What does it look like? What does your sales team look like? We weren't doing sales at the time, and we would get involved with their sales strategy. But that's what I would do. But then when we had team members have a look at it, they just did, okay, so our scope is 4 social media posts per week, 1 email, and whatever, and they would just stick to the scope. And if the client wanted something out of the scope, it was an issue, because then they had to make a decision, and they didn't feel right making the decision of how were they going to change the scope, and is this going to be more time for me, and I don't have the power to negotiate with my client, and all that sort of stuff. So then clients would get frustrated. They felt like the team that was dealing with them didn't have the seniority that Dan or I had when we were the ones who sold to them, and they liked the experience with us. And then they were like, yeah, it was kind of like a downgrade when we went from working with you to working with your team. And then from the team side, they also had a lot of issues with, I'm getting overworked, or I don't have the flexibility to make decisions, or I'm not getting paid more for doing extra work, and my client wants extra work, and there's no incentive for me to do that. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a mess all around.
I see. Okay. And this is in general in just taking ownership over their work. And because of this, to try to combat this, you decided to come up with some different principles, different things to work on. What are some of the key principles that you discovered are essential to making this mental change?
Perfect. The first one, and we were talking about this earlier, is perseverance. I think perseverance is the most crucial principle for life in general. I don't know, like in business, it just makes a lot of sense. Like every business owner needs to have a resilient mindset. And in life, it's just extremely useful to have that mindset of perseverance, to have that as a core value to how you do things, to stick to things even when it gets tough. I mean, are you going to drop the ball just because things are hard? Or are you going to stick to it and figure out how you're going to make the most out of a bad situation? Life is going to be packed with bad situations. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Like, you're going to face challenges. You're going to face obstacles. You're going to face trouble. I mean, life is dark. It is extremely dark. Are you going to face that darkness with a smile on your face, or are you going to crumble apart and fall into pieces? This is something that is important, whether you are the owner of the business, whether you're an entrepreneur that's just starting anew, or whether you're an employee or you're a partner. It doesn't matter who you are. Even if you don't work, like in your life in general, you might be retired, you still need to have that mindset. You still need to have perseverance as a core value to your existence.
I mean, completely agreed. I mean, and it sounds nice, but how does one really develop that kind of mindset?
Joe DeSena, he talks about this in one of his books. I can't remember which one right now. It might be Spartan Up or 10 Rules for Resilience. There's a psychologist or psychiatrist, I can't remember exactly. I always mix the two up. And she found that there's something particular that happens when you face a challenge, when you do hard things. It's kind of like some train tracks get laid out in your brain, some neural pathways get laid out. And when you're facing a hard challenge, you're overcoming something difficult, you're laying down those tracks. And the amazing thing is, the next time you face a harder challenge, you can ride on top of those tracks. Like, you can go back to that and build upon the tracks that you've already laid out. But here's the catch. If you give up, those tracks completely fade away. You lose all of that. It actually becomes harder to do something hard again. My first recommendation, if you want to build that mindset, is start doing hard things. And hard things are different for everybody. Because, I mean, what's hard for me is something completely different than what's hard for, I don't know, my mom or whomever. Like, we all have things that challenge ourselves, that challenge us, that are specific to us. Like, someone might have a fear of heights, someone might have a fear of water, someone might have a fear of public speaking. Like, face your fears. Like, figure out what it is that is hard for you. So I broke my foot, right? I broke my foot in half. When I broke my foot in half, the hard thing for me was starting to walk again. So you just have to choose one thing that's hard. Like, don't go, I don't know, skydiving if you can barely walk. So choose something hard that's gonna challenge you, but that's gonna be feasible. So it's gotta be something you can actually accomplish, because you don't wanna get to the point where you're doing something hard, you're laying down those train tracks, and then you quit, and then it becomes so much harder to rebuild. So you want to do something that you can actually accomplish. So set that goal, push yourself. Like, it can't be easy. It has to be hard, but it has to be feasible. So do that. I don't know, like I just did a 1,000 burpee challenge a couple weeks ago, right? I'd never done 1,000 burpees in a row, but I had done 300. And because I did 300, I knew that I was at a point where, 1,000 was going to be super challenging for me. It's a lot, but I've already done, 33% of that? So, well, no, I went the other way, 27% of that. My math is terrible. Around 30% of that. I only had to push that extra 60, 70%. Do something that's gonna push you to that limit. A couple of days ago, I ran half a marathon. I had ran half a marathon before, but it'd been, I don't know, like over the last year, I think the most I've run is 15K. So half a marathon is 21K. It was harder, and man, my foot is still swollen because I'm still like in recovery from my broken foot. But it was feasible. If I went to do 42K, there's no way I could have done it. I would have broke my foot in half midway, you know?
Yeah. And do you set it up so that you take it gradually? Do you break down one of these challenges into chunks so that it's more feasible? Because like you said, it's extra dangerous or extra damaging to give up.
Absolutely. So right now, I have this very clear challenge in my mind that I've set for myself. I think we've talked about this. I will be going to survive the Alaskan wilderness for a year in 2027. And why am I doing this in 2027? Because I know I'm not ready for it yet. If I went in 2026, I might maybe make it, but man, that's super close. 2025, there's no way I can make it. And 2024, I would die like in a heartbeat. So I know I need to train and build up to that. And I'm gonna have a lot of milestones in the way that are gonna make it so that it's more likely that I'm gonna be able to survive that Alaskan wilderness experience. Because I need to really up my game with hunting, fishing, conserving foods, and just, man, surviving alone without getting lonely, just the winter, the cold. It's so challenging. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes into this, and I'm planning that out. And in that path, I do have some milestones. I have some big things that I want to accomplish in the middle, especially work in my mind. Like this 21K was part of that. I'm doing the Spartan death race in the summer, and that's going to be super challenging for me. That's like 72 hours, probably no sleep. Maybe like I will get to eat a little bit, but it's going to be the 72 hours of torture of like the organizers telling me to do random things that I have to do. And how does that translate to Alaska? Well, it's my mindset, because when I'm in Alaska, I can look back, like when I'm having a hard time, I'm going to be able to look back and say, I survived the death race. So if I survived the death race, okay, let's just push this another day. I'm not going to be thinking, oh, I need to do this a year. I'm going to be thinking, okay, can I just survive another day? And that's it. Just push yourself a little bit further.
That's huge. This is why I said that you are the perfect person to talk about this with, because you really seem to have mastered this mindset. And that's great, but how do you help people on your team do that? Because these are the kinds of traits that I see in a lot of other entrepreneurs, and they love taking these challenges. This is why they get into entrepreneurship. But if you're an employee, it's likely that you don't have that same attitude. So is this something that is just innate in us, or do you think it's something that can be developed?
I think there's a bit of both. There might be people who come to this world with, I don't know, just naturally have this attitude about them. But then I also think you can absolutely build it. And I know this from my experience because I've built this. I'm a completely different person than I was 4 years ago or 8 years ago. Man, when I started the company, I did not work out at all. I did no physical exercise. I had a really bad shoulder injury, and doctors told me I should just like be chill and more sedentary. So that's what I did for about 4 years. Eventually I got fed up with that and started training, and little by little I hardened my mindset, and I learned that I can overcome bigger and bigger challenges. The experience that I've had is something that I'm trying to get other people to share, to take part in that experience, to live that way, to challenge themselves, to be better versions of themselves. Not to become me, but to become better versions of themselves. And like with my team, for instance, the first thing I do is live by example. You have to practice what you preach. So, this is what I'm preaching, so I gotta live this. And one thing that is really hard for me is to communicate what I do, because I'm not super big on social media. Like it always feels weird when I post anything. I just like doing things, not so much sharing them, but I know I should share them, so I try to share them as much as I can. I always try to invite people to join me for challenging experiences, people that I think are gonna enjoy that. And with my team, we've done really cool things. Like we had a Wim Hof experience with the entire team. We took our whole team to an island, private island in Tigre here in Argentina. It was awesome. It was a great retreat. And so this in itself, it was very much test to the mindset. We did this. It was January 21. Argentina had one of the longest COVID lockdowns, and we were just getting out of that lockdown, and everybody was super panicked. Like people in Argentina were wearing masks and doing the alcohol stuff, and everybody was getting jabbed. And we said, okay, we're gonna take the entire team. Like we've had no social contact for about a year. No one has interacted with anyone, and we're just gonna put everybody together, like going completely against health protocols and all that. And we will not require jabs. We will not require any sort of proof of that you're COVID free. No alcohol, no mask. Like you want to come here, it is full on risk. So if you're willing to take the risk, you are more than invited to come. But you cannot ask anybody to put alcohol in their hands. You can't ask anybody to mask themselves. Nothing. It's risk. You're invited. We didn't mandate it. It was an option.
And it was an invitation. It wasn't an obligatory team activity.
Oh yeah, when we did this, we were kind of scared, okay, we might be paying for this island and have like 5 people show up. But then most of the team came, and that was awesome in and of itself. Just people showing up, that was a huge success. It felt great. I mean, like we really breathed freedom in that experience. It was such a nice relief from the torture of being locked in your room for months.
But it wasn't all just fun and games. Knowing you, there had to be some difficult challenges involved, right?
Well, of course. So we would wake up early in the morning and go training. We did do some like workshops, some stuff for the mindset and all that. And then we also did the Wim Hof experience, and that was super cool. We had a full day. The only Wim Hof trainer in Argentina at the time, he was there in Tigre, so we contacted him. He lived in another area and he just happened to be around, so we got in contact with him, said, hey, we'd love it if you could join us here and do a workshop for us. And coolest guy, Diego Perazzi, highly recommend him. He came and he joined us and he did a full workshop for our team. And everybody in our team, I mean, it's a full day thing. We learned breathing techniques. We learned why cold exposure is so good for you, like the health benefits, the mental benefits. It was really amazing. And then everybody had to go in the ice for 3 minutes. And everybody did. And the thing is, when you're in there, I mean, that was my first ice immersion. That was my first ice therapy.
Really? Wow.
Oh, yeah. That was the first time I did it. And as soon as I went in the water, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? Why did I sign up for this? I'm crazy. And I can't back out now. There's all these people here watching me. I just wanted to get out. Like, I could feel tears coming up in my eyes. It was horrible. Like, worst experience ever.
It looks so refreshing from the outside, but as soon as you go in, you're like, this is pure torture.
It's torture. It's the worst. Oh man, like you just want to go out. It was the fact that I was surrounded by everybody there and that I knew that I could push through. I submitted myself into staying, and the really, really tough part was getting yourself to a point where you actually relax in there. Because the first minute is just torture. You hate it. That's a really cool thing. I really like taking people to have their first experience with Diego, because he's just such an amazing guide. He really gets you to relax in the ice. Because I mean, your first instinct when you're in there is you want to fight this. But the goal is, no, don't fight this. Like, just embrace it. Embrace the cold. And it's hard because, I mean, why would I embrace the cold? But then through the breathing technique, and he guides you, and like he works your mind so that you can actually relax in that really, really tough situation. And once you realize that you can, you just let go. And it's actually like very meditative. It's a really calming experience. You just go somewhere else. And wow, it's just soothing. And then eventually I relaxed in there. It was chill and I loved it. Before I knew it, he told me, okay, 3 minutes are up, you can come out. And then I dunked my head in, because I always want an extra challenge. I dunked my head in And then I pulled out and it was amazing. Everybody clapped and it was really cool and everybody started joining and everybody went in the ice. Everybody did their 3 minutes and you could see they were all going through the same experience that I went through. They were hating it and then they were loving it. And as soon as you come out from that, you're like, wow, I did this. I'm so proud of myself. It's like I can really accomplish amazing things. And that's the thing, because you do hard things and that lets you know that you can do hard things, that the next time you're facing a really tough challenge, that you can overcome it. That's the kind of thing that I like to do with my team. We've also done things like obstacle races and stuff like that. I've taken them, like everybody's gotten super muddy and they were scared, but then in the end they loved it.
That's very cool. I love that, and I think that's a really cool thing to introduce into any team that you can. What are ways that you introduce these kinds of principles in the Boom system, the Boom OS?
So first of all, we do the whole theory part. So we listen to some videos, podcasts, people like Joe DeSena or David Goggins or Jocko Willink, really badass guys. You kind of get motivated by what they have to say. That's very inspirational. It lets you know that you're not just doing hard things because you're a masochist, but that you can actually grow as a person through doing hard things. And it's really important to have that theory because that's what gives you a purpose to doing it. Because I mean, if you're just doing hard things because you're doing hard things,
you hate yourself.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Then why should I stick to it? Like, I mean, why am I torturing myself? I'm just going to stop torturing myself. But if you know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, then that's the extra motivation for you to face that challenge and come out stronger in the end, because you know you're going to come out stronger in the end. So that's the first thing, like just the theory. And then we also do assignments and we have people come up with their own ideas of what's something hard that I can do in my life. What's something that's going to be challenging for me. And then they have to go through and do that.
Very cool. Okay, and so this is something that would be given in theory given as a course to your team that other employers could then also give to their team as a sort of an exercise that each person goes through it on their own.
Exactly. What we did in Digifinz is the whole team went through this course where this was one of the principles. We kind of like just did everything together. We talked about the challenges. We talked about our homework assignments and what we were going to do and all that. And then kind of like just hold each other accountable. And the idea is for other people, the Boom OS is something we're starting out with. We're testing it out. And what we want to do is we want to help other companies to spread this mindset, to get their team members to embrace this resilient mindset, the core principle of perseverance into their being. Part of that is doing the course and getting them to challenge themselves and holding them accountable for that.
And what are some of the results that you've seen from this? I mean, beyond just the hype after the people got out of the ice bath, what are things that you saw change in terms of their work or how they work together or with clients and things like that?
To begin with, we pretty much don't see people break down anymore. This was something that actually happened for a while. Like we had people who would break down and this was really tough for me. At one point, I found out that some of our team members would go to the bathroom. We used to have offices, now we're fully remote. And people would go to the bathroom and cry.
Oh my gosh.
The day was too hard on them. And I didn't want to have the kind of company where people would go to the bathroom and cry. I thought that was awful. We worked on that a lot, but right now what I see is the mindset within my team is a lot harder. Like they're hardened in life. Not as in like bad people, but as in they can face harder challenges. The team that I have now is, man, it's just all A players. I love my team. They're amazing. I know that they can face challenges, that they can face situations that if I put my team on those situations 5 years ago, it would be a massive issue. Right now, they can face it. Like even when they don't have answers, even when they're in a new situation that they haven't been through before, they have the adaptability. They have that mindset where they know, okay, this is something new to me, but I can figure it out. And maybe I can't figure it out, but I have a team that's going to back me up and help me figure it out.
That's amazing. Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I guess if people want to find out more about Boom, we'll leave a link in the description. And next week, we can talk about some of the other principles that are in the Boom OS and how you've implemented them in your team.
Love it.
Great. Thank you. Until next week.
Well, stay wild and stay free.